I think we're live. I think people can hear us. Let us know. Apparently, I need to sign into chat through OBS, so I might as well just do it on the YouTube page itself. Can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
There is a bit of a delay, right? We put a 30-second delay, or whatever the default is. So, oh, I've seen us on Twitch now. On Twitch. Why am I saying Twitch? Well, we're on YouTube today. That's the wrong streaming platform. Can you guys hear us? I'm still waiting for a response in the chat. Wait, I can just check myself.
Let us know. Let us know if you can hear us.
Yeah, I think they can, because I just checked on the preview. Someone said hello. Hello.
So hopefully they can hear us.
Yes. I'd still like someone to say yes, we can hear you. Okay, first person said yes, so that's a good sign.
Yes.
Okay.
So, well, welcome everyone. For the ones of you who don't know me, my name is Zucconi. I'm a lecturer in artificial intelligence and a science communicator. And if you've been here before, maybe you see that things are slightly different from usual. And this is because we're doing things a bit different than usual. This is actually a joint live stream, just to make our life much more complicated. But I'm here with Nathan, which you might recognize from the Dapper Dino channel. So, hi, Nathan.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm Nathan. I run the Dapper Dino channel, and I mainly focus on more intermediate tutorials. That's, I know, what most people watch me for. They're fed up of all the beginner stuff that's flooded in the community. So I do a lot of multiplayer recently and other intermediate topics.
That's awesome. I think we definitely need more non-basic content to get started. Ethan, I have a question for you that I've been wanting to ask for quite some time. And I don't know, maybe the people on my channel that don't know you might be wondering that as well. So why Dapper Dino? What is the story behind that?
It's probably not as interesting as you think. I'm pretty sure I've probably been asked this each stream, to be honest. It is a good question. It's simply however many years ago when me and my friends were coming up with our gamer names, we all wanted something similar, so we decided to go with the theme of posh dinosaurs. So and they to alliterate. So obviously Dapper Dino, and then some of the others are like right, I say alliteration, and as soon as I think of one, it's not alliteration at all. So we've got Exquisite Raptor, Dandy Dodo, Splendid Saurus. I guess one of them failed to alliterate there, but yeah, we're all just posh dinosaurs. And I thought when I made my channel, I just use that name, and it stuck. And now I'm stuck into it. I can't change now. So yeah. How about Game Dev Graveyard?
Now. Oh, that's quite interesting. So I have made many Unity projects in my life, but I've made very few games in my life.
And that's the same for everyone.
The ratio is probably exactly, the ratio for me is like 1 to 100, and probably I'm even like underestimating that.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel bad because every time I open Unity Hub, I can see all the graveyard of my game idea number 5, robot game 16,
yeah, the only games,
all those dead projects.
The only games I've ever released have been for game jams. Every time I take part in a game jam, I always make sure to finish it. But like,
I know, right? Yeah. Oh my god, that's so true. That's so true, actually.
Yeah, I've made like
and so.
The delay is not great from Discord either, is it? Yeah, I've made like 4 or 5 game jam games, and I think the next game jam is next month, right? And by that I mean Ludum Dare. I think it's in October, so I might try and take part in that. But I'm a bit clued out on when the date is, so I might miss it. I don't know.
Isn't it this weekend or something?
Is it this weekend?
Maybe the next one.
If it's this weekend, then I'm not going to be ready. I'm not going to be like prepared for that now.
Oh no. Maybe the theme is going to be announced this weekend.
Maybe I'm actually going to
something like that.
I might
get. Let us know.
I'm checking right now. Wait, I've just screwed up my streaming thing here. It's October the 2nd. It is this weekend.
Wow. Oh, it is this weekend, then.
Okay.
It is actually this weekend.
I'll have to think about whether I can take part. Maybe I'll. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see.
Because you mentioned October, and I was like,
yeah.
October is in how many hours? But so yeah, I think that initially I started streaming during the lockdown because I'm an introvert, but I was reaching the point where I needed human interaction through a monitor, but human interaction as well. And initially, it was called Unity Graveyard because my plan was to show my prototypes that failed. And let me be clear, I have 1 million prototypes, and I'd be happy to show them all. The problem is that not many are interesting to show to people. Like only a few are actually good to look at.
Yeah. Did you run out of
So
ideas?
I started reaching out.
You run out.
Not ideas. I think I ran out of cool projects to show. So I just started asking other people to show their projects, and it slowly transitioned towards something about, more about game dev. But the thing I like is that I keep the sort of core idea that for every project you make, many don't make it. So it's this sort of hidden bias that you only see the games that make it, and you don't really know how much effort, how much time, how many failed projects you have to do, how much changes, how much work you have to do to make a game.
As long as you actually,
I always try to.
As long as you actually learn from the mistakes, and like I always try and make sure, if I'm making a project, even if it's going to fail, at least learn something new.
What did you learn from your mistakes?
It's not necessarily mistakes. It's more of like every time I try new projects. Sometimes I make projects without the goal of releasing them, purely just for learning. Like trying, for example, with multiplayer, just trying the new stuff out, or trying like the new UI system, or trying the new input stuff. Like just trying all the new stuff without doing it on a serious project where it's gonna cause problems.
That's actually quite interesting because I get bored by projects very quickly. So if I make a new game, it lasts a week, and then it dies. It literally goes into my graveyard, and that's I think one of the reasons why I'm good at doing tutorials, because tutorials, like, I can stay focused on a small project that doesn't need to be polished. It has to work, and it has to be educational, and so that's how I think I managed to make so many tutorials, because basically it's an experiment on starting thing that I don't need to finish.
Yeah, I guess most of my projects in my Unity hub are actually just tutorial projects for various different tutorials or series or like different little things. Only a few of them are actually my own personal projects. Most of them are just for tutorials.
So something that'd be interesting to know is that, of course, you do video content, and I do videos, but not video tutorials. Many different reasons. How does it work for you? So how do you make it? Do you do it beforehand, and then you go back pretending it's super easy and you do it on the fly? Or do you record it from the very beginning? How is your process?
It has changed over time. When I started, I would just come up with an idea for a video, hit record, and then make it, and cut out like all the mess ups and the bits where I like press play. I'm like, let's build, and then it doesn't work, and I'm like, oh. So the amount of times that's how I used to do it, and now I do usually pretty much always make it first and then like go back and do it again. But I do make sure to mention slip ups I had when prototyping it, because sometimes if you don't mention that, other people will slip on it, and then you get loads of people stuck in the comments wondering why stuff doesn't work. So I make sure not to present it as it was perfectly easy, I did it perfect the first time, this is easy. It's not like that always.
So one thing I've seen on Twitter, it was one of those like tweet tutorial, like a GIF, like 30 seconds showing how to do something.
Yeah.
They show like, oh, if you want to make a video of you typing very fast without mistakes, type the code, delete it all, and then do Control-Z to have an animation going backwards. And I think, oh, that's really sweet. That's really nice. It works well. But I think it's the most damaging thing you can do to programmers that want to learn, because then they will believe that that's how you write code, starting from the beginning, never closing the last brackets until you reach the very last character of your C# code. And I think that there is so much to learn from seeing people live coding.
Yeah, people love typing
mistakes.
Yeah.
And it's very tricky, because live coding, I think that Charles from Infallible Code does some live coding, and there are a few people that do some live coding. It's so stressful. When I'm in class, as I say, I'm a lecturer. When I'm in class and I do live coding, it's live, but I have on a side a piece of paper with like the actual code I
Yeah.
had to write because it's so like it's so stressful. You have like the sweats like
Yeah.
always there.
I'd never do tutorials live, but in the past I have done like, here's something I want to work on, and I only work on it during the stream, so you can technically go watch all the VODs. I think I tried a while ago making a roguelike, or at least a working demo of it. So you had stuff like the movement, the shooting, picking up different guns, random like item rarities from chests and stuff, and kind of procedurally generated levels. They were procedurally generated to some extent. Like the rooms were pre-made and then they were stuck together procedurally. And I did all of that on stream. And I had people tell me like, "Hey, that thing you did, yeah, you could do this by the way." And someone was also like, "Oh, you can do this by the way." And then some of the times things contradict, and it's like you can't just take everything everyone tells you as like, "Oh, I've got to put that in the code now." And we could probably move on from this to the open project. I think it's quite related to that.
Oh, that's interesting, right? So I know that literally today Unity has been released this open project thing, and actually you've been involved. You want to talk a bit about that, maybe?
Yeah, so obviously most people here that are programmers are aware of open source software, and it's a very common thing. But you never hear about it for games. You never hear about it for games. So Unity have actually been working on this thing, which they've released today, or at least the start of it today, which is they're calling it, I think, Unity Open Projects, where each project is its own game. So at the moment, it's like a 3D platformer kind of game. And then they're going to make mobile, VR, 2D, all different variations. But they're starting off with this one. And the whole point is it's an open source game where Unity, a few people at Unity are kind of moderating it and controlling the direction of the game. Because if you just opened it up completely to the community, it would be a mess. So they have to at least give direction. But when it comes to features and bug fixes and just everything about the game, you can discuss on the forum, so you can still have your say. And then if a feature has been agreed, like we need this combat system, then you can go ahead and actually ask to work on it, and then they'll assign it to the community so that other people don't try and make it at the same time as you and, waste their time. And then you can work on it, and then you can pull request it, and if it's good and they agree, they can add it back. So you can actually contribute to this game. And I've already done 2 contributions. They were both just really small bug fixes. The first one was just testing it from the public's point of view. So I was testing for them like how it works, the flow. And then I actually made a tutorial I released today, a few hours ago, on how to contribute for those of you who want to. And I did it more of like a programmer-sided thing, whereas I think they're going to release their own super simple. They're not going to mention branches and like all the Git terminology and stuff. They're going to try and skip over that as much as possible. Keep it artist-friendly, but you still need to use GitHub because it's all done via that. But yeah, if you want to, I guess, contribute to an official Unity project on their GitHub and have a bit of your code in their game, then go ahead and check that out. It's pretty cool idea.
To be honest, I'm quite excited about this thing, and I'm not always very excited about things, so I think it's a good sign. Because for a long time, one of the criticisms that a lot of people was raising about Unity is that all their demos and showcases were short videos, films like Adam, the Book of the Dead. What's the name of the latest one? I don't remember.
Yeah, the Heretic.
I
think it was.
Heretic, yeah. Technically, amazing.
Yeah.
I look at the shaders and I'm like, educational value close to 0. And even if they had bits available on the asset store, for example, you can get for free one of the scenes from the Book of the Dead, the forest scene, games. So there is this connection where some people say, "Oh, folks at Unity are not making games, so they don't know what game developers need." And whether it's true or not, I think it's great that they're moving in a direction where they're making actual game templates, basically, that you can start from. And I think it's great because often I don't know what is the best Unity way of doing something. I don't know what I should do and what I shouldn't do, because sometimes the documentation might not be clear. Sometimes the example might have changed over the years. if you get something from Unity 2016, maybe it's not the same from Unity 2020. 4 years in computer times, it's like 40,
Yeah.
right?
I think
So it's nice seeing that that level of commitment from Unity to make those templates. I'm quite excited.
Yeah, because the thing with tutorials, and obviously as a tutorial maker, it's kind of a very, very common thing where you want the tutorial to teach how to make that thing, whatever it may be that you're teaching. But then there's so much other stuff you don't show, the setup of the project, all the little settings behind the scenes. And if you're making an actual game, and especially as an indie developer, you've got to do everything yourself. And it's hard in tutorials to show that stuff. So I think a cool way of doing it is like this, where it's an open source project. You can do the little bits you want to do, and then you can see everything else at the same time. You can even watch like the changes people are making to all the shade stuff if you're not into shaders. You can look at how all the animation stuff is set up. You can see everything. And they even mentioned in the video today that at the end of each game, they're going to publish them on Steam, for free, of course. But that means that like even then they're showing you how to get stuff Steam ready, like, which is a very useful thing in the game dev world. I don't know how much stuff they're going to ignore from the repository, that like Steam specific stuff, but still, like having everything set up and work. Same with all like controller support. Maybe they'll add localization, like all this various stuff that needs to come together to make a proper game. They're doing that, so I think it's exciting. I don't know how many months it is they're planning on taking before this is going to be published, but we'll just see. I guess it's how the community, how fast the community goes at contributing.
Yeah, and maybe how much they like a project or not. I think that it seems to be very community driven. So I imagine that if nobody likes a game, they're probably okay. Let's release this now.
Yeah.
Instead of spending like 50 more weeks on its development. And you know, to me, it's quite interesting because if you search for Unity tutorials, the vast majority is very basics. It's super basic, and I mean nothing wrong with that. Because some of my courses are aimed to absolute beginners, people that have not even done coding before. The problem is that Unity is not just that. I think the amount of beginners tutorial is disproportionate to the actual, to how Unity is used in the industry. If Unity was like something very simple, very mild, only used to make like small things or bitsy, it would make sense to have beginners tutorials. Unity is not made for beginners. It's made actually has reached, I think, every level of the industry. So we need to have that also, because otherwise people never know how to make the jump. Okay, I have the 15th tutorial about the timeline. How do I integrate the timeline into the rest of the game? So not just something, you know, extracted from, decontextualized, but something that is part of a bigger picture. And so I'm excited to see it and to ask Unity, so why have you done this and not that? Well, you know, where should I use delta time? Where should I fix delta time? You know, like a tiny question that maybe if they can put in the comments will really help people knowing how to make stuff work.
Yeah, when I started Unity, I found it really easy to get on board because there's so much beginner content. I don't think there's too many to the point where you get lost as a beginner. It's the problem that once you're not a beginner anymore, you can't find anything. I find so many things where it's like, I might Google search a question for something that I'm stuck on, but all the answers are aimed at like a beginner-centric way. So it's stuff about like, oh, how do I handle input context? You know, basically, while I'm speaking to this NPC, I can do all this stuff, but I can't do that stuff. When I'm doing this, I can do this stuff, I can't do that stuff. And someone will just be like, yeah, you just use bools. You just say like, if this is and that is and that is and that is and that is, then do this. And it's like, yeah, that's the way I did it back when I started, and I don't want to do it anymore because it's spaghetti. So I have to end up just sitting there. I can't Google anything because there's no intermediate tutorials or discussions. I don't mean there's no intermediate discussions, but as you said, it's very disproportionate. Like, it's basically like 5% to 95%, it's roughly.
Yeah, totally. And I think that, you know, it's not bad because you have people like Brakis, you know, God bless. Wherever he is, God bless Brakis. That they basically helped thousands of people getting started. And probably none of those people would have started without seeing beginners tutorials, because I keep saying this, but the first time I opened Unity was the first time I closed Unity. I was like, how do I make a cube move? It was a lot. It was a lot. So definitely helps getting people on board and making sure that they enter. But then you're on your own.
Yeah.
There's very little, and it's also why I started making tutorials about shaders. Now, people don't know me. I also write educational tutorials online, and the majority is about shaders and AI and inverse kinematics. They tend to be usually above, the above medium level. Let's say they try to wink an eye to beginners, but they tend to be a bit a bit above entry level. And when I wanted to learn shaders, there was nothing. All the resources I could find were there was no beginners, but they were incredibly technical. And I was like, I need to get something. I need to make something. And I think this is really what made me start making tutorials, I guess.
Yeah, it's the same thing with me. I do have some beginner content, and not a lot of it, but I still have it. For maybe some people who find the channel, I don't want them to just leave because they're a beginner, I still have beginner stuff, but like I said, people who think about the actual architecture of their projects and how not to write spaghetti code, because like I said, if you follow a Brackeys tutorial and you don't know how to do that particular thing, you very quickly learn what it is and how to use it from having zero knowledge. And then the thing is, once you start using it, you don't know how to use it properly. Like you mentioned with timeline, how to use timeline in like an actual project, there's not really any resources on that. And the main reason I'd say is not because no one knows how to do it, it's because it does vary from project to project. So I think that's why this open source project thing is good, because you can see an actual implementation of it in a full game. And that full game might not be your full game, but at least there's stuff there for you to use, or you to understand how you would do it in your own game. Yeah.
It's kind of tricky also, because I think if you look at a Unity API, you can see that he has grown a bit out of control. Oh, I mean that's very rude. I can say that you can see that probably Unity has grown faster than they originally expected. So there are a lot of things that maybe they would have done very differently if they looked at the past. A lot of sort of choices that maybe weren't ideal, especially around materials, for example, and how they work. Naming conventions, that maybe are not really nice. This has led to the creation of many ways to do something, many Unity ways to do the same thing. And sometimes you can get lost into that, and they might not be compatible with each other. So you might use this package for this and this other package for that, and then you realize that you can't really merge them together, or it becomes a mess. And I feel that seeing how Unity themselves, not people that, random folks that are very good on Unity projects, but actual Unity people that can ask directly to the source what is the best way to do something. I'm expecting to see two things. One is the correct way to do something, the bare minimum. And the second is when you can cut corners. And I think this is something that Ciro Contenizio, which is actually the Unity folks working on this project, was talking the other day with Charles from Infallible Code. They were discussing about cutting corners and hacking your way around through code. And it's true, sometimes the right way to do something is to do it wrongly, or at least, to do it in a way that is proportionate to the amount of resources you have. If doing the right way takes 3 months of code, while you could just do it with 2 lines of code, then it's okay. Do it like that. And I was joking that basically when you're really skilled with design patterns in software architecture, when you know how not to use, when not to use design patterns in software architecture.
Yeah, when I first learned about what interfaces were, and by that I mean coding interfaces, not user interfaces, I was like, oh, this is a godsend, this should be used everywhere. And then I got myself into a much bigger mess where each interface would have one implementation, which would just defeat the point in it existing. So don't overuse the things. And that's hard to teach when you have a video on this pattern, because people assume like, oh, I must now use this pattern everywhere. No. It's like there are places you should and shouldn't use it, and the quantity at which you use it also varies. So that's like the true skill. That's when you go from intermediate onwards, I say. I think intermediates are the people who are learning the proper patterns. Beginners don't care about coding patterns at all. Like, they don't even know what they are. Intermediates know them, and then I guess past intermediate is knowing when to use them and when not to use them.
Definitely. And it's a bit like, the typical example that I tend to do like in the college is like, it's like a Ferrari. It's perfect for certain things, but you don't want to go buy groceries with a Ferrari. It's probably not, the best use for that device. And it's the same with software architecture. You need to realize when something is good and when it's like, no, it's too much power.
It's like using the animator just to rotate a single object. I've seen people do that. I've seen people do that.
No, it's not true. Depends on what I have to do, but usually I do everything with like trigonometry just because.
Yeah, I mean, there's really good like tweening libraries to do like that kind of stuff, but the animator's just more overhead, more annoying to set up, and yeah, it's also not as flexible because obviously with tweening you can just pass in different parameters to change things easily, whereas with the animator you got to go in and keyframe stuff, and yeah, I'm not an animator, so maybe that's a bit of a bias as to why I don't like to animate things, but.
And also I think that it's also up to which tools you know how to use. So maybe the animator is the perfect tool for something.
Yeah,
it's exactly what it needs. It's exactly the right efficiency, the right cost, the right time. But maybe you know how to use something that is not as good better because you used it before. For example, I have my own library that I keep iterating every project, and it keeps growing. And it has all the methods that I find myself keep using, and including a lot of trigonometry stuff. And so when I have to move something in a way that is smooth and reactive, I don't use the animator, even if maybe at the time the animator was the best choice. I'm using my own library because it's the one I'm most confident about, and I know how it will react to the rest of my code.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's also knowing when you can afford not to use the right tools, because you know that it's going to be easier for you. But also, one thing I'm excited is that Unity project, usually because of the collab thing, it's a mess to work with many people. And I'm really keen to see how that is going to work, how Unity is going to manage like so many people working on the same project, because this is much closer to an actual professional studio where you have that situation.
Well, everyone's got to sign an automatic document, so I don't know if that'll put some people off. Like, I don't think they're going to have problems with too many people contributing. Well, so the problem is, contributing, you have to know the etiquette of how to contribute. And so, for example, if we look, I don't want to like shame this person, I don't know who it is, but on the pull requests on the first day when the live stream happened the other day, someone did a pull request which was just putting stuff onto different lines and changing the formatting slightly. And the thing is, I can see why you might want to do that, because you might see this is a good contribution, this makes it easier to read. But the problem is, in an open project, when everybody has their own preferences, then every file will have a different formatting, and it just won't work. You've kind of got to just agree that for this one project, you give in to someone else's styling. And to be honest, I think someone pointed it out earlier, actually. On my commit where I did the bug fix, Visual Studio must have changed the, like, how many spaces or tabs or something, and Chiro didn't actually notice. So I feel like one of the files actually does have different formatting. But that was an accident. I didn't go in maliciously trying to change the formatting. So I think we actually brought that up the other day, I think, in Charles's stream. Someone said it in the chat, which is that there needs to be some easy way to make all these public contributors do that formatting, even like without them having to think about it. Like some automatic formatter or something. Or they could like make some settings for Visual Studio that they can give out so that it does it for you. I'm not sure about all that stuff and how it would work best, but yeah.
So it's funny because during the show with Charles and Chiro,
I know what you're gonna say.
I actually said as a joke, I can't wait to change the indentation style.
Yeah.
So it's nice that it actually happened. But you said something sweet that you don't want to shame people for that. And I think in a way it's true. Like when people are learning, maybe they will, and are learning in a cooperative environments, maybe they will do changes that don't get accepted, and that's fine, and that's a perfectly reasonable way to learn, because if you've never done it before, it's a perfectly reasonable thing to happen. So whoever the person is, don't feel bad.
No, because I actually had a look at the other contributions, and like someone did something about a state machine, because we need a state machine for the character. And the thing is, obviously the Unity animator has its own state machine. Personally, I don't like using it for like actual logic for no. Yeah.
Using that, it's a sin.
I've tried, and the reason why I tried in the past was because in that other project they released, that game where you've got like the weapon and you hit these little chompers or something. That game they released, I forget what it was called, but they used the animator state machines for the logic. So I thought, I should do that too, because they did it. And then I tried, and it's just really not good. It's not designed for it. What I've done in my project since then is I've built my own state machine separate to that one, and I just call animator play methods or change the parameters to go between the states. Those states are purely visual over there, nothing else. Though the one thing is, recently I've tried, instead of using my own, using Bolt, but only the state machine part. I don't like the flow graphs. I like coding, and I find it awkward to do coding with that. But just for the state machine, it's really powerful. So that's how I've been doing things. I've used the state machine for logic, calling animator stuff to do the animation. I think it's really good to separate those two out. I don't know, you seem to be quite strongly against it. Like the state machine behaviors.
No. Like, I'm quite strongly using the animator's state machine as a state machine, because it is not what it's supposed to be for. It's a completely different thing, and it's quite heavy for something so easy to do otherwise. But I think that state machines don't get as much recognition as they should, because they are like the very basics of 95% of AI in games. And game logic, and logic in general, is so heavily built on state machines. So for the people watching, if you don't know what state machines are, it's a way of structuring code. So you want to write a complex piece of code that orchestrates how things happen in your game, and it could be a character controller, it could be a level selector, it could be a UI, whatever. As long as you have different things reacting to inputs in a discrete, specific way, you can model this with state machines. And you make it a diagram on paper, and then you translate that diagram on code, one-to-one. So it's very easy, it's very intuitive. And I would say 75% of logic code in general runs on state machines. If you don't know about that, learn about that, because it will allow you to make whatever piece of logic you want in your game. So that's really cool.
Yeah, there's so many different ways of doing state machines. Like the first, so there's not doing state machines, just having loads of ifs in an enemy.cs, the way everyone starts probably. But then obviously some people move on, and I've done this before. I heard about switches and enums, and then you start doing your states like that, and it works. It's not as bad as the first one, but it's not great. And then you move on. Personally, I moved on from that to then the actual state machine behaviors. But the only reason I did that is because it's the only visual state machine that I had access to, I guess. And I think, I always have this in my comments of when I did a video on Bolt, people like, ooh, why would I use Bolt? I'm a programmer, And the way I see that is, if you're a programmer and you don't want to use visual tools, then why using a game engine? Why not just do it all in code?
I should use that. I should steal that.
Because the thing is, if you're making a dialogue system in a game, you don't want to hand code it all. You want to make a dialogue tool that you can then just build a dialogue tree up in. No one in their right mind would hand code the entire thing. Visual tools are good. I agree, the visual scripting part of it, where you're actually doing like code in it, if you're a programmer, you might not see the point, and I don't well, I see the point. It's for non-programmers, but it's not for me. Whereas the state machines, I see are really useful because I've made my own state machines in code. The only annoyance I've had is they're annoying to set up in code. And I'm not a visual. I don't know how to make editor tools. That's not my thing. Maybe I'll learn it one day. I don't know about editor tools. But here comes Bolt with an amazing state machine graph. It's free. It's really good. And they're developing it now with Unity, so fingers crossed it gets even better. So I think that's really good for state machines. And like I said, certain things in your game you want to build tools for as designers, even as programmers. You don't want to set a dialogue tree up in like a little JSON file or an XML file that I've seen people do. Like, the computer should do that for you. You just do it on a little tool, and it saves it to a file, and you don't have to look at it.
I think that visual coding takes so much shit from people. Like, there are so many developers not recognizing the value of visual tools. And I mean, you cannot, you don't have to like them. I don't necessarily like visual tools. For shaders, for example, I'm not a massive fan because, I probably more effective by writing shader code myself. But even if I don't like it, even if I don't use it, doesn't mean I don't recognize the amazing value they have. Because think about line of code. Someone that has no experience with writing code, they're probably not going to write a C# script from scratch. They will see the cursor blinking and will be like, what do I do? But someone that has never seen code before, that can probably code, because visual tools take away the syntax errors. Whatever you do, it works. It works. And it's intuitive and it's easy. It's in a way you can imagine. So yes, it is true. Maybe they're a beginner tool for many, but see them not as a beginner tool. See them as a debugging tool, as a visual debugging tool, right? Yeah. That's how I try to pitch them.
See, I used to think they were also good for prototyping. You could come up with an idea and just chuck it all together really quickly. But then I also realized I can type a script much faster than I can put together a little diagram. Now, maybe that's partly because I've not used Bolt for very long. I gave it a go. I gave visual scripting on Bolt a go, and I found it just too slow, like, to make it. I had to, like, dragging the nodes and the fuzzy editor and typing in and waiting for it to find the component I want and the function I want. I don't know. Maybe it is down to the fact the performance needs to be made better. Maybe I should stick to programming completely. But I don't know. When I tried a little bit of Unreal Engine in the past, I found their visual scripting, it's more native and built in. So when Bolt gets more integrated with Unity, I'm sure Bolt will be really good for the same stuff. Who do we have in the chat? We have Games Plus James. We have Elena here.
Hello.
I don't know who's in your chat. Anyone you recognize?
Yeah, we have Cornelius Seval saying, "Hello, Alan. I remember your tutorial on inverse kinematics. They were really helpful. Thank you so much, Cornelius."
I saw him say that in my chat. He probably then went over to yours and said the same thing. I was gonna forward that onto you, that message, but you've got it now, so.
But so as I was mentioning at the beginning, I think every creator. I think they have to find their own spaces within this industry, which is very overcrowded. Yeah. And the spaces that I've sort of put myself into is slightly more advanced tutorials. And a series that I've been doing, it's about inverse kinematics. And if you're not familiar, inverse kinematics is how do I move my robotic arm or my feet in a character to correctly reach for an object without having to do that animation manually. Yeah. So imagine inverse kinematics as procedural animations for robotic arms. That's that's how I would pitch it. And I've done a tutorial that a series of like 8 tutorials maybe that are quite deep on the subject. And there's a lot of equations, there's a lot of trigonometry, but I think they're worth it. I think they offer more functionalities than the package that Unity has, and they allow more flexibility in that sense. So I always like giving people the choice, showing what they can do. We also have Elena here. Hi. So yeah, I think it's great for people to have a lot of alternatives and a lot of ways to being able to do the same thing. Of course, I'm starting to get a bit worried because now Unity is doing shader graph, is doing inverse kinematics. Unity, I'm going out of job.
Well, you can still be the one.
Leave something to me.
You can still be the one teaching how to use those things. Because to be honest, I've used shader graph a little bit, and I'm not a shader person. I thought maybe that would help me become a shader person. But then when I look at shader code, it's like, I want to know how to write that. I just don't know how to write that. So, like, genuinely, I might look up one night just more of your stuff and see if I can learn from that. See if I can become a shader master too. Because,
so
shader code, there's a few questions I think everyone has about shader code, which is stuff like, what code editor do you use? Because Visual Studio, as far as I'm aware, has really bad support for that kind of stuff. Also, it's been a while since I've done shader coding, so I've forgotten terminologies like HLS something, I don't know. Like
high language shader
language. I don't know.
Whatever.
Yeah. Something. Like what, I don't know, what to edit in to make it useful. Also, where is the documentation for like any of this stuff? Like, that's why I can't learn it, because I don't.
It's on the NVIDIA portal, actually.
Oh.
It's on the NVIDIA portal, so not on the Unity website, which is very weird. But for me, the problem is that shader coding has two main challenges. One is the syntax, because you don't have support in Visual Studio, as you said, and shader graphs take perfectly care of that. If you use shader graph, whatever you write works. So that's amazing. It's an amazing tool. But the trick is that even if you can make your code compile, can you write code to make the lighting effect you want? And that's where you need trigonometry. And that's where you need a bit of, technical skill. So at least on that, I hope I still have a couple of years before Unity brings me out of job.
I only looked at shader graph. I looked at it quite a bit when it was first coming out. And the only problem I found is you couldn't make everything in shader graph that you could make in coding, because there's so much missing. And as far as I've seen, over time, they've added more and more stuff. So there's less and less that's missing. But I'm not in the shader space. Is it even possible to make anything in coding, anything in shader graph? Like, is it possible?
So last time I checked, and it was up some time ago, it wasn't. But I know that Unity is working fast on that. Now, the thing that I think where shader graph for me is really, really good is that Unity before used to have a single way of writing shaders. It's not true, but take that. You write your shaders, you do graphics in a single way, and it works. Now Unity has two main ways to do it, which is the universal render pipeline, which is the standard way. And it has the high definition render pipeline, which is a way of rendering stuff in Unity that is way more expensive, and it runs on high-end PCs and consoles, but it has a lot more effects that you like transparency stuff and things that you wouldn't normally have on a lower-end machine. The problem is that writing shaders for those two pipelines, they're different. So a shader built on one is not going to work on another one. But if you use shader graph, it's a node-based editor. So the code is hidden. So this gives the possibility to have a graph that then you can, if you want, use on different pipelines. And I think this is where it really shines, because again, it takes away the possibility of making mistakes. And trust me, when I have to write a shader from scratch, there's no way it's going to work. Yeah. I always have to cut and paste my old code.
I guess the two things from that, one is I wasn't actually aware that one shader graph worked for both pipelines. I'm guessing there will be cases.
I think it does now.
I'm guessing. I don't know. I mean, I don't do it that much. I just thought you'd still have to do two, but maybe not. I mean, when I started with shader graph, it didn't even support what I can't remember what it did and didn't support. I think it may have been just. It wasn't even called the universal render pipeline back then. It was called the low. Something.
No, it was called It was called the lightweight.
Lightweight.
You have to do marketing. You will never call it low quality. You will
always
call it lightweight.
Yeah. So back then it only supported lightweight and not the high definition. And then they changed lightweight to be universal. And now it supports both. But I wasn't aware that you could share the shaders between. Maybe you can.
I believe you can. Now, if I said something horrendously wrong,
someone would let us know.
If you're still here, tell us if I said something.
And then the other thing is shader graph will always have the benefit of previews at every node level, as opposed to code where it's like, save, does the end product look right? That's a big difference.
Jerry in the chat says Amplify shaders is great for making it work on all pipelines. It still needs some manual porting. So yeah, I think there are quite a couple of popular and really good shader node-based editors. Amplify is definitely one of them. And again, it's a very different. It looks very different from shader graph, and some people prefer one or the other. I think it's a matter of preference. Probably, I think that because Amplify has been around for longer, maybe it might have better, better workflow. That's maybe it's better usability. But at the same time, shader graph is made by Unity. So whenever I can, I strongly prefer to use something made by Unity than to make my own. If I have an alternative that it's basically the same, they offer the same. Mostly because I know that with the Unity one, I know that they will keep supporting it, and I know that if I have any problem, I can contact their support. So that usually it's my preference.
Yeah, it's always better because at least the native things usually would have better performance and usually would be more feature rich. Like I said, when Shader Graph came out, it definitely didn't have anywhere near as many features as the ones on the asset store. Now, I guess it's either caught up, maybe overtaken, maybe not just yet. We'll have to see. But I guess if you've been using one of the third-party ones for a very long time, you might want to just stick with those. But yeah, again, I feel like there's a higher chance of Unity not dropping one of their built-in things than a random person on the asset store. It depends who it is on the asset store, of course. But, they don't have as many people shouting at them when they don't support it any longer,
about shader about node-based editors, there is something though that is absolutely driving me crazy. You cannot cut and paste. So if I see something from a written tutorial, I just copy the code and I paste it on my shaders. If I see an image on shader graph, I can't. Bloody hell, I can't do that. And for me, having to zoom in and doing all that, I never know if I'm doing it correctly. So this ability of not being able to cut and paste single bits, that for me it's a major issue, especially if you want to work and between different setups. Of course, if you have two windows open, you can cut and paste nodes, yes. If it's any screenshots on a forum, you can't.
I'm thinking the only way to solve that would be to get some kind of tool where you can put in an image and it scans the image and then puts in the nodes. It's not impossible.
I'm sure, but I'm not holding my breath, to be honest, about that. But no, it's very cool, and I think that probably many more people started playing with shaders because of Shader Graph than because of my blog or because of all the other resources. So I think kudos to Unity to realize that there was something needed for the community. Now, whether or not people like the tool, that's something different. But I think that it's really good that they've gone that direction.
That is the same with localization. So I've always wondered how to localize the game. And for those of you who don't know, that's just the form of adding multi-language support, basically. And every time I've looked at before, it's either been buy a third-party tool or make it yourself. Probably won't be as good if you make it yourself, especially if you've never done that kind of thing before. You won't think about all the different features that you need until it's kind of too late. So I don't know if you're aware, but they've got a localization package now that I think it supports. I might be wrong here. 2019.4 onwards. I think they've added support for that. And it's really easy to use. I did a tutorial on it, and I'm going to do more. But it's basically you add the package. It's one of the package manager ones. And then you say, yep, new localization settings. You go through all the different regions you want to add support for. And you get normally people might do it in an external Excel spreadsheet. And they do it all themselves. But it's better to have a proper tool for this, yeah. And it'll just have all the columns of the different languages. And then going across all the keys. And you fill it in, and you can even add smart translations where you can have it use public field variables from scripts on that object. So you can, grab a number to put in a sentence for a bit of dialogue or something, but have it also be translated. And it's really good because you can have the different language context, because sentences don't translate very easily across languages. That's the main thing you realize when adding multi-language support, is that things are completely different. It's like in some languages, the number 1 would be the number 1, whereas in English you might say, I have an apple. No, I have 1 apple. So
yes.
you can easily set it so that for English, if there's one, like with an integer or maybe a float, I don't know, you can get it to say like if it's a plural or not and stuff like that. It has all that kind of support for plurals and stuff, and it is really good. And it's in early access, and it's still really good and easy to use. So just things like that. Like we were talking about how making a game is so many things you don't think about until it's too late. The fact they're now making packages for shaders, like tools for shaders, tools for localization, tools for everything. There shouldn't be anything you go in, need, and have to get a third-party tool for. You still have the options to, but they do now have a package for pretty much everything. Like, if you don't call it third-party, you don't call it first-party, you call it in-house, an in-house solution, I guess. Yeah.
So, a question I have for you, Dan, is,
yes.
Of course, you've been using Unity for a few years now, and it seems that you're quite good with it.
Maybe 3 or 4 years, maybe 3 years, I'd say.
Probably you have your own ideas, you like certain things, you don't like other things. What do you think Unity lacks right now? Do you have like something that you would say, I wish Unity had these like built in inside Unity? I wish that Unity folks would have thought about this.
I haven't prepared for this question.
Oh no, me neither.
Yeah.
I'm trying to wait what you come with so I can reply to that.
I don't know, actually. I don't think it's necessarily anything with the engine, because like I said, my answer to that might have been stuff like localization support and other such things. Most of the things over the years I've been using Unity, most of those annoyances have been either solved or are in progress of being solved. I guess my main thing right now is probably, like we started off the stream with the content, one of the things I've been trying to make for a while and make proper is like a character controller. And there's so much to a character controller, it varies from game to game, and the built-in character controller component doesn't actually move your character. You have to write the code to move the character controller. It's just that it handles steps and like, what else does it handle? Like collisions, I guess. And that uses
events.
And the thing is, when you take that and you then need to build a proper movement system, yet again, with state machines, with like all this logic for what you can do when you're standing still, running, jumping, sliding, doing this ability, whatever, I feel like you're kind of left in the dark for that stuff. And I don't have a problem with trying to figure it out myself, but I know it's done in so many games, but there's not really any way to access that knowledge unless you go work for one of those companies, because it's all hidden behind doors. So I guess one thing is I don't have many years of industry experience, so my way of making stuff is how I think it makes sense to make it, or what the internet advises me when I try and look for help. And I think as an indie developer, that's always going to be the case, because even if you did work at a company on a certain thing, you don't work on everything. You still, as an indie, need to know a bit of everything. Like, I will get to a point in my own project where it's like, I want some water that has the kind of rim effect around the water. Everyone likes water shaders, don't they? It's like...
but everybody loves them. Nobody loves doing them.
Yeah, well, there'll be a point where I want to do that, and like the fact that we have your tutorials and other people's and shader graph, I'm sure I can put that all together and make something like with all those resources, hopefully.
I have a tutorial on water caustic. So people are not familiar. The caustics are these sort of lighting ripply effects that you see like on pools and stuff like that. It has gone crazy. People love that, apparently.
Yeah, because most people will probably just start off with a plane and just make it blue and transparent and then be done with it.
Yeah. So you mentioned something really interesting where I have a lot to say, the character controller. So I'm working at a college where we teach how to make games. So character controllers is what I see every day, because almost all the students want to make character moving. Almost most games have characters moving,
Yeah.
right? Now, the example I show to my students to, in a way, scare them, but also to sort of raise awareness about how complex character controllers are, is Celeste. Now, Celeste is a fairly simple game to describe. I mean, it's a feast of game design. But if I had to describe the game, it would be fairly simple, because the character in Celeste, they can jump, they can run, they can double, triple jump, right? They can sprint. They die if they touch stuff. So, I say maybe they do 10 things at most, and maybe 5, even just 5. So you wouldn't imagine, okay, I don't know, 50 lines of code per, each. Instead, if you actually look at the C# script or the character controller of Celeste, which was actually released, it's 5,700 lines, something like that. Yeah. Now, I will ignore the fact that if you write a class that is 5,000 lines, you fail my class. Will literally fail you.
You could probably have done it a bit better.
But besides that, of course, a commercial project has different marking assessment. It shows how blood insane that is. The character controller for A Short Hike, which I might have decompiled, it's over 2,000 lines, and it does even fewer things. It walks, it jump, and they glide. How could it be? It's insane. It's insane. And actually, Mitch McClellan on the chat is saying the devil is in the details. Yes. If you want to make it good, if you want it to react to collisions, if you want it to have the Super Mario fake physics effect, but then to be actually affected by real physics, if you want it to jump, 5,000 lines. Maybe over different files, but 5,000 lines.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't work as nicely, it's because you haven't written 5,000 lines of code. That's my take. It's pro rata.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where I heard it or saw it, but I knew about the character controller code out there somewhere. I can't remember where I read or saw about that, but I don't think I've read it myself, and I'm not sure exactly how it's set up, but in one file, I assume there weren't state machines involved here. Like, maybe... I can't imagine how that would be in 5,000 in one file of 5,000 lines, one class. So, like, I feel I'm not going to sit here and say they should have done it better, but like, yeah, again, if I was to do the same thing, I wouldn't do it in that approach. Probably, I would think about all the different moves and like, if I can do this jump to that jump, those would be their own states. I just think state machines are perfect for that kind of thing for character controllers.
It was a state machine, but just a very long one.
Okay, I might actually have a look at it. I'll see what I think about it.
If you search Celeste character controller,
I'm sure I'll
file,
find it, yeah.
You find a GitHub repository. Maybe I can find it and link it. But I think that for me, the biggest criticism I have for Unity, the thing that I wish was done differently, maybe let's go like that, is that they clearly see that there's a need for more tools to help developers with different backgrounds, like visual coding and stuff, animators. But then, instead of building those in-house, they acquire stuff made by other people. And again, nothing wrong with that. Commercially, is a very valid thing to do, because you cut down on the development cost and you have something that other developers already know. The problem is that then you ended up with pieces of code that Unity doesn't know how to fix because it's not their code. And I remember that, for example, Mechanim, the animator, Mechanim. I never remember. I trust you. I never remember.
I think it is.
If someone from Unity knows how to spell it, let us know. No, I trust you. Don't worry. If for many years you couldn't zoom out because it wasn't it wasn't an in-house tool. It was made by other people. That's my guess, but I think it was very close to reality. Multiplayer, it's a mess because it wasn't it was made a bit like that. And a lot of other features like Text Mesh Pro, for example, or Pro Builder, they're amazing tools, but making them officially Unity tools, to me, it's a big step. And they don't feel Unity tools. I mean, they don't feel native with Unity. They feel like additional tools. And this creates an environment where all those tools, they have their own look and feel. And the engine overall becomes this big patchwork. Now, I know, knowing Unity folks, and I'm mentioning this to them, doing any other way, it's probably not feasible because they cannot spend years making new tools. It's a problem that Shaded Graph has. It's native, but maybe it's not as advanced as other tools that Unity has acquired because, obvious reasons. But yeah, that is like my dream Unity. It's a Unity where all those tools are built in-house and they're all consistent.
Yeah, no, I do slightly agree with that because I use Pro Builder and stuff, and the UI just doesn't feel right. It's like I've downloaded this from the real Unity package manager, but it's not Unity design, I guess. And I don't know, maybe if they just gave it a fresh coat of paint, like just made it look a bit different, maybe we would forget all about that. But it's like with Bolt. I know Bolt has very recently been acquired, and building a full visual scripting system that's good will take a while. But from what I'm aware, I'm not like 100% up to date with the news, but they are, this time by the sounds of it, trying to make Bolt and their own current dots visual scripting and whatever else visual scripting they've been working on to bring it all together. So maybe over time it will have less of a Bolt look and more of an in-house look. And I feel like that's what they're going for. And like I said, Shaded Graph feels really good. It feels like a Unity tool. It looks like a Unity tool, and it's good. But like you say, with the other ones, Text Mesh Pro, when I started Unity, it wasn't, there was no package manager, but I tried getting some UI text, and I made it big, and it looked really bad, because I think everyone knows that. Everyone that's been using Unity for a few years knows about the upscaling text and just having it look bad. Then you have to re-mess with the scale and the UI stuff, and then it's like, I googled it, and I saw people use Text Mesh Pro, so I installed it, and I was like, oh, this is great. Obviously, the naming's odd. It's like TMP_text, I just want it to be text, but it is Text Mesh Pro, so maybe over time when they just get rid of their old text stuff, they just make this text, and
yeah, it's a tricky scenario, unfortunately, and I can see, I remember, so there is one thing that I keep blaming Unity for, and I will forever. So if you have Unity open now, right click, try to create a new material. Sorry, try to create something, a new asset, and you will see that they misspelled physics material. So the name for physics material and physics materials 2D, one is misspelled and has never been fixed.
I was waiting for some really big reason as to why, and I was like, what's it gonna be? I was like, I didn't know that, but now I'm gonna know. Now you've told everyone here, that's another however many people are gonna not be happy with Unity anymore. They're gonna go to their project and just see the misspelling. Yeah.
Demand justice.
Maybe Elena's in the chat. Maybe. Have you ever actually told people to make it apparent that they should fix that?
Yes, I actually started like a Twitter drama, I try to cancel Unity until, no, that's not true, but I did mention, ironically this on Twitter, and it's very interesting that it's such a small feature, but someone from Unity replied saying something, oh, as soon as you make a mistake in the API, you cannot fix it anymore. And there are typos in the APIs that cannot be fixed because people are using that.
Yeah.
So mistakes in the APIs or badly designed APIs, which Unity has a fair share of that. I mean, like any software that has evolved, not because of Unity, of course. No software is immune by design shenanigans. They're unfixable once it's live, and especially a tool like Unity that is used by millions of people.
Yeah, if you change it, then
it's unfixable. It's
like you might make one Alan happy, but you make everyone else sad. Because all that.
No, but that's the thing. I mentioned, look, guys, let's do it like this. Leave the API like it is. Just fix.
Yeah, just fix the UI.
Text. Yeah. The UI. No, it can't be done. because then they said that I think they said something like it wouldn't match the UI from the UI from the API. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, whatever.
It's like we don't. I guess in code, yeah, when you refer to the class would be different to the UI, so it might be a bit odd, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe, but I mean, that's the thing. These is mostly for fun, because it's the same thing as changing the indentation style of a piece of code. You spend a lot of time on it, but it actually fixes nothing. So
Yeah.
I can see why probably Unity should spend more time on actual problem and not on me trolling them every now and then on Twitter.
I wonder how bad a spelling mistake would have to be for them to actually change it.
I think maybe if it's something rude, I think they will probably change it.
Well, did you
That's
say
my guess.
it's not that the word's spelt wrong, it's that it's plural and singular, right? You said it's got an S on it. Physic or physics material? What was...
So there is that, and there's something like psychic. They also write psychic somewhere else, maybe in the API or something. Psychic material or something like that. Correct, people in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was something like that in the API as well.
I've never noticed, but now I'll notice. Thanks. Yep. Elena's leaving now. Elena's leaving because you pointed out the typo. She's gone now. She's going to go.
Elena, help me to get that fixed, please.
Yeah. Goodbye, Elena.
All right. But no, I think it's something quite interesting that Unity has been used by so many people, and everyone has their own opinion. I think that when a tool is so used, and when you spend in so much time with a tool, you ended up both loving and hating it. I think it's inevitable.
Oh yeah.
And people that maybe have been working on a game for years, I remember that every time I work on a game for a long time, the music of the game, I hate it. I despise it because I hear it every time while debugging. And I think that Unity is a bit the same thing. You use it so much every day that you develop this love-hate relationship, with the tools. And probably it's good, because if you love a tool and you have nothing to complain about it, probably didn't use it much. Probably you never experienced any issue with the tool, so maybe you didn't use it as much. And for the good or bad, I use Unity pretty much every day for hours.
Yeah.
So I think I have my own ideas of what could have been done better, but then of course they're unrealistic. It's my own old man yelling at clouds.
Yeah, you've definitely got to have a love-hate relationship, because as you said, if you don't find anything wrong, it's not just a case of you're probably not using it enough. It also means that stuff doesn't get fixed. So
yeah,
it's like with improvements as well. If they make something and it's bad but it works, you could just sit there and be like, well, it works, so I'll use it. But if you don't say that it's bad, then it's going to stay bad. And it's the same with the whole, like, just companies in general. Is like, I like when other game engines, mainly Unreal Engine, do something good, because I'm like, yes, now Unity's going to do something even better. So, because they've got to.
That's actually good. And I know that a lot of people imagine Unity and Unreal as those two, like, two forces fighting against each other. They're two part of the same ecosystem, and I think that on many things they complement each other, and they reach probably different part of the audience as well. And in a way, it's good that we have both, because as you said, if Unreal makes something really good, Unity probably has to follow on that. So it's quite nice. Now, something that I like about Unity, I love about Unity, that Unreal doesn't have, is that Unity is super fast at replying people's need. So if I send an error report, a crash report, Unity replies to me. That's amazing. That's like actual Unity folks reply to me. That's incredible. And besides spelling errors in the APIs, Unity has been changing stuff based on people's requests. And I think that the latest updates of Unity really show that. They said something like, we're listening to your comments and we're acting on that. And I was so happy to see that Unity are doing that. because it's not guaranteed. Unity at the end, it's a closed product, so they could do whatever they want. If the Unity folks believe that a better direction is the right one, they would do that. Instead, it seems that they're really happy to take into account people's feedback. And it's not something you should take for granted. Try to do that with Windows or Office.
Yeah.
It's not something you should take for granted.
See, I wonder like how true that is for people who haven't got communities like us, because I feel like now I've got connections, so it makes that kind of stuff easier. I'm trying to think back to when I didn't, or I think I always had the channel when I was messing with Unity, but obviously when I was no one at all, when I just had like 0 subscribers, I still feel like I did get decent responses. So like on the forums once I had a problem with something, and then within like a couple of hours I had a response from not just someone in the community, an actual Unity employee. And the funny thing is that guy, I can't remember his name, it's Carl something. He's actually the lead on the localization thing. So I spoke to him like 2 or 3 years ago with this random error I had. And then the other day when I did a localization tutorial, he was like, hey, great tutorial. And I was like, I remember you from that thing you helped me with 3 years ago. And then obviously he doesn't remember me because it's just some random guy on the forums with a problem. But then he was like, oh, by the way, I'm like the lead on the localization stuff. If you need any help or if you got any problems with it, just let me know. And I'm like, oh, great. So there you go. And the first thing I said was, I don't know about you, but I always use serialized field private. That's kind of a split. Like some people just use public for everything. But when you're
public for everything, I'm a public guy.
Yeah. So I like the whole encapsulation of, if I put it serialized field private, it's because I, the designer, am meant to set that, and then it's not meant to be touched by other scripts just changing the variable. But for this localization thing, you know how I said you can have smart text where it uses variables in the text? It would basically, how it works is in the text inside curly braces you put the variable name, and then what it does is on that component you drag in references to scripts where it should look through. So you drag in your script and then it will say, all right, does that script have the player health variable? It does. Put that in the text. And then the thing is, it only worked on public, so I now have to make stuff public that I didn't used to have public. So I just said to him, like, do you reckon you could add support for serialized field private stuff? Like, can it grab that? And he basically said, like, yep, I'm having a meeting with the team soon. We'll add that to our thing. And I was like, my contribution, I'm sure if I didn't do it, someone else would at some point. But it's nice to, like, think, they're actually listening and taking feedback from people.
I think that's great. So while you mention these, you make me realize what is the feature that I think Unity lacks and that I would love to have. It's the saving system. I would love to call game.save and it saved the state of the game. Game.load and it reload the state of the game. Now I understand.
Yeah,
I understand. It looks so the people that maybe are not familiar with how serialization and how mono works and how everything works. I understand it's not possible.
No, it's not.
I understand it's not possible. But they could have done, like for Pikuniku, the game I worked on, I've done a mini library where I added an attribute called like savable, or I don't remember, something like that, on the fields that were supposed to be saved. And then it was done all through reflection, and that worked perfectly fine. So even something like that, maybe the attributes that you want to be saved, all the public ones, all the ones with an attribute, is saved by that function. And I feel that it's a good compromise without having to dump 3 gigabytes of memory in a save file.
Yeah, I feel like...
But it's something that should have been taught from the beginning.
Yeah, someone in the comments actually said this, and I was thinking it while you were talking, is that save systems change too much from game to game, I think. Their needs. It's like saying some people will probably get away with using player prefs for their save systems. Like, it depends what you need to save. I mean, some games don't really need to save anything at all. They might be the kind of game that you open up, and then when you close and open it up, it's like a fresh game. There's no saving. But yeah, the way I've done saving before, I can't remember where I learned it exactly, but how it works is it's similar to you. You put a savable component on an object, and on your mono behaviors on that game object, you implement an interface like iSaveable, and then that has a function to return an object, and you basically return like a struct maybe, just with some serializable data like ints and strings or bools or whatever you need to save. And then whenever you save, I know I don't usually do find objects of type because that's slow, but if you do it once when you're going to save your scene, it's absolutely fine. And then it grabs all the savable game objects, and then each of those things get all the savable data, and you send it to a file, and then when you load, you just do it back. And it's similar to what you said, just slightly different implementation, and it works pretty well.
I can see why, knowing how Unity works, I can see why it's not that easy to implement. But I would love if they had a package, maybe an super experimental package of saving systems, where you have those features, or something that I always do, a checksum to sort of soft encrypt, your saving files, so that if someone messes up with them, they don't.
I mean, saving locally is only good for single player games, obviously. Just save it as like raw JSON, let people go in and mess up their stuff,
Actually, something for which I get comments is that when I find a game that I like but that is too hard for me to play, I tend to hack my way around it. And it in a nice way, not in a way that disrupts the other player's experience, but in a way that makes fun for me to play. For example, I want to shoot so many bullets that the gun looks like a laser, and stuff like Nuclear Throne, for example. And I talked this in a few other streams. I love Nuclear Throne, but my reaction time is really bad. So most of the game is blocked to me because of that, and I do not have the time to get good at that game, unfortunately. But I want to experience that game, and I think it needs, like Celeste, we were saying before, an assist mode where I can tweak the difficulty, because otherwise people with disabilities won't be able to play. This is such a massive problem, because nowadays I don't think it's acceptable to make a game that cannot be, disability friendly, or at least, that cannot have an accessibility feature of some kind. Of course, if you want to be super inclusive, that's incredibly hard, but at the very least, the very basics should be taken into account. And I think that many games don't do that, and that's when I decompile them. And I just like go rampage on the variables, like times 10, and see what happens.
It's like a low-key modding, kind of. Like, think of it that way. Yeah, that's another thing. Adding modding support. I wonder. I've never actually tried.
So tricky. There is actually a library for Unity to add, not made by Unity, like an asset to add modding support. That is very popular, but I don't remember the name.
You mean like addressables? You said by Unity or not by Unity?
It's not by Unity.
Oh, never mind then. No. I think they have made it easier to do that kind of stuff, like to load in external stuff to users. Custom whatever. But I mean, like, if you want to build like a map editor, then you have to do that yourself, pretty much. But depending on how well your game's built, I mean, you should be able to, like, if a game has a character select thing, make a new character and just go with that. But then it depends how in-depth that is. If your character like has to have their own abilities and like level up system and stuff, then that's going to be a lot harder. But yeah, I'm trying to think what games have modding. I mean, like Minecraft, for example. It's just as simple as, I say simple, no, you have to get your own mod loader. I guess it's simple because I've done it so many times, but when you think about it, it's actually really complicated to mod. And I'm not on about making mods, I'm on about just importing them, never mind making them. Like, I'm wondering what it'd be like if I released a game, how would I make it moddable for someone to come along and maybe even just chuck in their own image file and have it swap an image in the game. Like, that level of modding, and then I can go from there. That might be something I try at some point to teach how to do that.
I think that games like Kerbal Space Program flourish because of that. So, if you're making a game...
Sandbox games need modding. It makes them live forever, basically.
So we have in the chat the Nerd Gamer, nice name, that says it might be called Mod Tool. Maybe it's that one.
Maybe.
Easy. Yeah. The mod tool is called Mod Tool. Easier. Very easy. But yeah, I think if you're making a game and you have the resources to do that, please, two things. Accessibility design. I'm trying to get the finger in my screen. Accessibility design assist mode, however you want it, and modding support. Now, modding support is tricky, very tricky to do. Accessibility design takes a bit of time, but it's not complicated. At the very least, make an easy mode. If you can't do anything, make an easy mode, step one. Step two, make sure that colorblind folks can actually use the game properly. So don't use colors to code for critical information. Maybe use flashing lights, maybe use shapes. Hue is an amazing game for that. I actually have on my website a tutorial. It was one of my most popular tutorials actually a few years ago on how to simulate color blindness. It's a strong word, but how to simulate color blindness in games so that you can test if your game is accessible. At the very least, try that. And for modding support, maybe make a special menu where you can tweak the variables of the game, the properties like gravity and stuff like that. Let us play with the game in a way that people wouldn't expect.
I guess it does depend what kind of game. If it is a single player modding online games is a whole nother thing because everyone has to have the mods for it to even work. Or I guess if it's a multiplayer game where you have the ability to host your own server, at least you as the host should be able to tweak server-side stuff that other clients would use, I guess. That's not just so you can cheat and buff your own player character in the game and then make everyone else really weak. But I think Overwatch added this they've got their own. It's not really modding as such because you can only use internal stuff, but you can make your own game modes and stuff in the game, and it allows you to make one giant character and versus 15 small people as opposed to the standard 6-on-6. And I don't know, it just makes it more fun. It allows the community to get their little game design, bit in there. Even if they don't know how to use a game engine or coding, they can at least just take what's already there and just mash it together and make a little fun mini game.
And for the people watching, for the game dev watching, if you're worried that these will mess up with multiplayer, yes, it probably will, but there's a way around it. If you're worried that people might be able to change the parameters of the game or recompile the game or mod the game in a way that breaks multiplayer, then do this. When you start a game and you're ready to go multiplayer, do a checksum of the files or the variables that are critical part of the game, and send the checksum to the server. And if it's not, it's checksum you expect from the original files, reject the player. So, you have ways to prevent people from doing that when it's not necessary. But if it's a single player campaign, please let us mess it up.
Yeah.
with the game state. I take responsibility. Let me do it.
Yeah. If you mess up your game save file and you break everything, then that's your own fault. You should have saved it. You should have made it back up.
About that. So I've been following the development of Rainwood. It's a game that came out a couple of years ago. I love the art direction of the game. It's incredible. The game is also brutal. I can barely survive 5 minutes in the game. So how can I say it? I have made the game easier. Let's go with that. And I accidentally corrupted the saving files. And when you do that and you open the game, it says something cheater everywhere. And I love that. And I absolutely love that. It was a really nice way to shame me for for me trying too hard.
When loading up the save file, just if there's an error, just put up some UI saying you're a cheater, and then just do it like that. Or as you said, you could do a checksum if you really want to check if it's not being touched at all, whatsoever. But I guess it's even funnier to only call them a cheater if they break and corrupt the save file, because it's like they're a bad cheater. They failed to cheat. They just broke it completely. So, yeah.
Well, to be honest, I didn't corrupt it. It was perfectly formatted, but I didn't recalculate the checksum. And I was like, I was reading the code and I was like, no, I can't be bothered to do it manually. I can't be bothered to manually redo the checksum. No, I'm sorry. I'm okay. I'm playing it nicely. At the end, you cannot stop people from cheating in your game.
No.
You can just make it very, very difficult.
Yeah, make it so annoying
they want, they will.
Yeah. Just make it so annoying that they waste their time doing it. And then when they even do it, it doesn't matter. Because in multiplayer games that are done correctly or with dedicated servers, as long as it's server authoritative, the client's own cheating on their machine won't really affect anyone apart from themselves anyway. So, yeah.
But actually, it happens once that I was playing this game that I really liked it. And I was messing up with the physics just, so that I can fly longer and stuff like that. And the developer sent me a message on Twitter because I didn't know that my score was being submitted to a leaderboard. And it was like, is this you? How did you manage to get that score? And I was like, oh, fuck. But then we had a nice chat and I was like, oh, maybe you could add security to your game.
Yeah, it's kind of their
I
fault.
Felt really bad. I feel really bad because usually I don't want to mess up leaderboards because that's not what I'm there for. I just want to have fun.
Just get them to clear your entry from the leaderboard.
Yeah, I was like, it's sad because it was like, okay, I can clear it up. And then the next day it was the same. I was like, oh, fucking, I'm not playing this game anymore. Because suddenly when you're all powerful, losing all that power and playing normally, I'm like, no, it's not fun anymore.
You just ruined the experience for yourself.
Well, there's a fine line because if you can never die, the game becomes boring very quickly.
Yeah.
So you need to make it easier, but not boring, So hacking games is a fine challenge, I guess.
What time is it?
An
hour and a half. Oh wait,
hour and a half.
What? How long was it? I said my other 2 live streams were because I think.
Oh, it was 1 hour and 47 minutes or something like that.
Was it? Are we gonna try do that
36
or not? I mean, have we?
We can try. I'm up for it. I'm up for it.
Let's see for the last part if we've got any questions in the chat. Maybe. I'm actually currently going to my channel to make sure I was right with that. 1 hour.
Need continuity for the channel.
1 hour 37. I got 7 minutes if you want to do that.
Oh yeah, okay.
Well, because my
so I.
Oh, go on.
Hey, go on.
Okay, this is awkward. On Discord's delay is this really annoying.
So I have. sorry. There's like 2 seconds delay is the worst. I have a question for you, and it's the question that I keep asking every folks on the show. How many versions of Unity do you have installed on your machine?
I need to go check that. I only think it's free at the moment. Genuinely, only think it's free. I don't have Hub open, so let me just open Unity Hub. The reason why I think it's free is because about a year ago, oh damn, that's bright. All right, installs. Wait, I can't really show it on stream properly. Actually, no, I can show it on stream. I'll just show it here over our faces. 1, 2, 3. There you go. I've got 2020.2, the beta, 2020.1, because that's out now. That's what I use for my projects I'm working on at the moment. And then 2019.4, and that's for the open project. They use 2019.4 because last year, I think at some point last year, I cleaned my PC. So when I had to reinstall Unity, I only reinstalled the versions I needed for the projects I am working on. If I need to go back and work on an old project, I usually try and back it up and just use a newer version and hope it works. And if that doesn't work, then I obviously download the older version. But I don't have any old projects that I go back to very often and need to use an old version for. But then I guess you're asking this because you have a really high number and you want to tell everyone.
Well, I think at one point I had something like 7. That's my that's my top.
I'd say 7 isn't
and also,
too high.
A quick.
Yeah.
No, I've talked with people on the show that have 13 or 15, something like that. So that's quite bad. So I have on the chat a message from Mick Rostenhoven. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Which I know is another part of another 50% of the Apedino stuff. So a shout out to them as well.
Yeah, Mick's in the chat and he's been telling everyone to of course like the stream. He's been saying hi to people. I think maybe answering a few questions, I'm not sure. He also told you to get good when you said you cheat in games. So
yeah. Well, I think it's easier. It's easier for me to hack a game than to become good. That's how bad I am at games. As I said, I love making games. I hate playing them.
That's strange. I don't find many people who think that, but you know.
No, maybe I don't hate playing
unless you
them,
like it more
I
for
the
more for the artistic side of things, maybe.
As I always said, I don't play a game if it's not Turing complete. No, that's not true. It's not true. But I really enjoy the coding bits more than the feeling I have of playing most games. That's me. I'm a bit weird on that.
Yeah, I think Mick wants me to mention something, but I didn't think he actually wanted me to mention it, but he's told me now. So yeah, it's an idea of something we're planning on making. We're kind of started working on it now. Mick's the one mainly working on it because I'm busy with all this Unity stuff, but we've been thinking about like a service or something that people want in our community, and then maybe it'll branch out to others. So we already have our website, but that's more of like an internal thing for people to ask questions about our stuff, give suggestions about our stuff. And we thought one of the things we've done is make like commissions. So we've done a bit of like freelancing. So I've taught people some Unity stuff, multiplayer. I've helped with people's projects, like, you know, privately, commission kind of thing. And one of the hardest things I found when trying to do freelancing in the past is it's not doing the freelancing, it's finding the jobs. That's the hardest part about being a freelancer, is just finding stuff. So we were thinking about making some service where people can, now, with a few minutes left, I'm not going to explain this fully anyway, and we're still iterating on ideas here, but we'd have, for our first version of this, like a game dev version of this, where people who need art making, music making, code, whatever they are, because indie developers need bits of everything, like we say. If you actually want to outsource stuff, as far as I'm aware right now, there's no really good outsourcing place for doing the stuff you don't want to do, especially if you're at the point where you're a coder, you need to publish your game, you've done coder art and coder animation, but you need actual stuff for it. So we want to make some kind of system where people can put up their like budget and what they need and like the categories of what it is, and then people on the other end who are looking for that kind of work can easily get kind of like a portfolio built up of what they do, and they can kind of go for those. It's like a way to help the people who need the stuff get the stuff, and the people who need the work get the work. And yeah, as I said, there's a lot more about that, and I don't think I need to go into too many details right now, but I guess as we develop it more and have it more fleshed out, then we'll talk about it again, and you know, I'll be definitely talking about it on my channel and social media stuff. But I think it's true that I have wanted to do like not even just commissions, even mentoring in the past, and I found it hard to find people to mentor, though I know they're there. I just don't know where to ask. And yeah, I feel like plenty of people want to do commissions and mentoring for people. It's just really hard to get into it. It's really hard to find the customers, even if you have the skills. It's like how Uber, obviously you leave reviews on the people who do the work, who do the driving, and then the drivers leave the reviews on the people. I don't know each app individually, all these different apps that do the same thing because I don't use them, but it's the same premise about how the reason you'd pick one person over another is either because they offer it for a lower rate, or they've got a better portfolio, that kind of stuff. They've got better reviews from other customers who've used the same thing. And we're hoping of building it up at the start more tailored towards game dev, because that's what we do, that's what our community does. And then maybe it can branch out and we can have like different subsections for different things, like maybe even teaching languages so people can get translations done, mentoring for like actual learning a language and stuff, and that's kind of the plan. Do we actually want to end this on 37 minutes? I've got 30 seconds left. I don't know if we can do this and say our goodbyes now.
Oh God!
Just to do it for the sake.
To both channels.
Yeah, go and subscribe. Go like the stream, even though it's already over now, basically.
And if you're watching on Game Dev Graveyard, I'm announcing. Stick around. I'm announcing the next guest.
Okay, and yeah, I don't have that planned yet or anything properly, so I don't have a next guest, but we will be pretty much definitely streaming next week, and as soon as I know, I'll be putting that up on the channel. I got to end the stream in 5 seconds so I can keep this